Glen Canyon Dam's death spiral is here. America's second-largest reservoir has hit 22% capacity, and what's happening inside that dam right now is the slow-motion collapse of an agreement that was supposed to last forever. This is not a worst-case scenario anymore. This is the scenario we're living in real time right now. The system is failing, and there's no emergency button to make it stop. Imagine you're standing on a thin concrete wall holding back a lake that's supposed to never fail. Glen Canyon Dam isn't just any dam. It's the plug that holds 26 million acre-feet of water. That's the entire annual flow of the Colorado River stored in one place. Visualize 26 million acre-feet. That's enough water to flood Texas 6 feet deep. That's enough water to cover the entire state of Texas to above a 2-story building. And right now, more than 3/4 of that water is gone. The lake is disappearing. The water level has dropped so far that white scars, calcium carbonate rings, are tattooed into the canyon walls, ghostly markers showing where the water used to be. Those rings go down and down and down. Some of them are from the 1980s. Some are from 2000. Some are from just last year. The difference between those rings measures the depth of an assumption. And below the lowest ring is a threshold that nobody wants to cross. At elevation 3,370 feet, imagine a line drawn on the canyon wall about 100 feet below where the water sits right now. Deadpool takes over. Literally. That's what they call it. Not metaphorically. Deadpool. When the water drops below that line, the water level falls below the lowest intake tunnels on the dam. No water can be pulled through those tunnels. The turbines stop spinning. The power cuts out. The emergency is no longer coming. It's here. And that's not just an inconvenience. That's the moment when 40 million people in 7 states lose not just electricity, but the water that keeps their cities alive, their farms irrigated, their economies functioning. The 7 states are Wyoming, Colorado, Utah, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, and California, plus Mexico. All of them depend on water from a river that doesn't have enough to give. This lake isn't just a reservoir. It's the hinge on which the entire American West hinges. And right now, that hinge is rusting in real time. The story starts in 1922, more than a century ago, in a world so different it might as well be a different planet. Back then, the Colorado River seemed infinite. It carved through red rock canyons. It fed the growing cities of Arizona and California. It watered the desert. And the leaders of 7 states, Wyoming, Colorado, Utah, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, and California, sat down in a building in Santa Fe to divide it up like they were splitting an endless pie. The Colorado River Compact, signed in 1922, allocated 7.5 million acre-feet of water per year to the upper basin states, and another 7.5 million acre-feet per year to the lower basin states. On top of that, another 1.5 million acre-feet went to Mexico through a separate treaty. That's 16 million acre-feet promised every single year, forever and ever. Amen. But here's where the story gets truly insane. Those 1920s surveyors weren't working with perfect data. They were measuring the river during an unusually wet period. Really wet. One of the wettest decades in the last 500 years. The Colorado River's actual average annual flow, measured over centuries by geologists and hydrologists, is closer to 12.5 million acre-feet per year. Some estimates put it even lower. The compact promised 16 million. They didn't just overestimate by a little bit. They built a system that was mathematically impossible from day one. The actual flow couldn't support the promises, not even close. That gap between what was promised and what the river actually delivers is called the structural deficit. And for 100 years, almost nobody talked about it. The reservoirs stayed full. Water kept flowing. Nobody counted the cost, because the cost didn't seem to matter. The system had a buffer. The buffer was called Lake Powell and Lake Mead, two of the largest reservoirs in the world, filled to the brim, waiting to release water during dry years. Think about what that means. For 100 years, the system only worked because we had already built the safety margin into the landscape. We filled those massive lakes so that when the actual river couldn't deliver, the lakes could. The dam wasn't the solution. The dam was the symptom. It was the acknowledgement that the river itself wasn't enough. And now the lakes are nearly empty. That safety margin is almost gone. The system's hidden flaw is becoming impossible to ignore. When the lakes were built, it seemed like genius. We were outsmarting nature. We were engineering our way past scarcity. We were wrong. We didn't outsmart scarcity. We just delayed it. We borrowed water from future years, and now future years are here. The bill is due. Fast forward 80 years to the year 2000. Something fundamental shifted in the climate of the American Southwest. The Colorado River Basin entered what scientists now call a megadrought. Not a regular drought, not a bad year, a megadrought, the worst dry period in 1,200 years. Let that sink in. 1,200 years. Medieval times. The Middle Ages. Further back than that. This is a drought so severe it's outside normal human experience. Scientists now call it aridification, not just a temporary shift, but a permanent move to a drier climate baseline. The temperatures got hotter. The snowpack in the Rocky Mountains melted earlier in the spring and yielded less water overall. The river's entire hydraulic cycle changed. The Colorado River's flow dropped another 20% on top of what was already not enough. And it didn't recover. It just kept dropping, year after year, decade after decade. The megadrought has now been underway for 23 consecutive years, making it the driest multi-decade period since record-keeping began. This wasn't supposed to happen. Nobody modeled for this. The system was built for occasional dry years, not for a permanent shift toward permanent aridity. In 2024, the Colorado River Basin consumed 13.3 million acre-feet of water, while the actual river delivered only 11.9 million acre-feet. That's 1.4 million acre-feet short every single year. Imagine the entire water supply of Nevada and Arizona combined being stolen each year. That's the magnitude of the deficit. This deficit isn't temporary. This isn't a year where things are tight and will recover next year. The structural deficit combined with the megadrought means we're now permanently short. The system was designed to handle this through reservoir buffers. But buffers don't last forever. They drain, and now they're nearly empty. The math is simple. When you spend more than you have, you eventually go broke. And the Colorado River Basin is going broke in real time. Every year, the lakes drop another few feet. Every year, the deficit grows worse. Every year, we push closer to the moment when the system stops functioning entirely. Glen Canyon Dam was finished in 1963, the capstone of a building frenzy in the American West. At the time, it was a triumph of American engineering. A 710-foot wall of concrete and steel, as tall as a 70-story building, holding back one of the largest reservoirs in the world. It could generate 1,320 megawatts of electrical power. Think of that as enough electricity for roughly 1.3 million homes with air conditioning running in the summer heat. That power was distributed through the Western Area Power Administration to Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, and Nebraska. The dam also stored water, so the system could buffer dry years. Wet years produced surplus water that filled the lake. Dry years released that stored water to keep the promises of the Colorado River Compact alive. It was supposed to be permanent. It was supposed to be safe. It was supposed to work. But the dam didn't create new water. It just redistributed scarcity across time, smoothing out wet years and dry years. And now we're reaching the end of that smoothing. The buffer is almost empty. The system is running on fumes. Right now, Lake Powell sits at 22% capacity. In April 2023, it hit an all-time low of elevation 3,519 feet, the lowest level since the dam began filling in 1966. That's 50 feet lower than the previous record low. The lake lost 50 feet in a single month. Think about that. A vertical drop the height of a 5-story building, all in 4 weeks. The white bathtub ring of calcium carbonate. That's the mineral deposit left behind by evaporation and mineral-rich water. That white ghost outline climbs up the canyon walls, marking where the water used to be. Some of those rings are from the 1980s, when the lake was nearly full. Some are from 2000, when things started getting weird. Some are from 2010. Some are from 2020. Some are from last year. The difference between those rings measures the death of an assumption. Each white band is another broken promise. Another year where the system had to take more from reserves because the river didn't deliver enough. If you've ever seen aerial photos from Lake Powell or driven past it, you've seen the rings. They look like the water just gave up. Like nature itself is keeping a record of our broken promises. Deadpool isn't just a concept that scientists debate anymore. It's a countdown timer that's ticking faster and faster. At elevation 3,370 feet, mark that number in your mind, the water level will drop below the lowest intake tunnels that feed water to the power plant. When that happens, and increasingly, when looks like the right word instead of if, water cannot be pulled through those tunnels to spin the turbines. The 1,320 megawatt power plant will go completely silent. The turbines will stop. No power will be generated. Hydropower that supplies roughly 40% of the entire Southwest's renewable electricity will simply evaporate. But here's what makes this really terrifying. The power loss isn't the real catastrophe. It's the Watergate failure that never opens again. Without active management through Glen Canyon Dam, without the dam's gates controlling the flow, water can't be strategically released to the lower basin states, Arizona, Nevada, and California, at the quantities they've relied on for 7 decades. California would lose water it doesn't have alternatives for. Arizona would lose the majority of its Colorado River allocation. Las Vegas would lose water. Not hypothetically, actually lose it, permanently. The farms that feed America would lose water or cease to exist. And Mexico, which depends on Colorado River water for agriculture and drinking water, would lose everything it relies on. The Colorado River wouldn't just stop flowing through the dam. The entire agreement that built the modern American Southwest would finally, actually, completely fail. Here is what they did not tell you when they were celebrating the dam opening in 1963, with helicopter flyovers and politicians making speeches about unlimited growth and manifest destiny. The compact is broken, the river is dying, and nobody, not the Bureau of Reclamation, not the governors of 7 states, not the Biden administration, not Congress, nobody has a real plan for what happens next. Nobody wants to say it out loud. Emergency water cuts started in 2021 under something called Tier 1 shortage declarations. Arizona lost water. Nevada lost water. Mexico lost water. But the cuts were not enough to stop the bleeding. So they ratcheted up to Tier 2. More cuts. Arizona lost more. Nevada lost more. Mexico lost more. But the lake kept dropping. So they triggered Tier 3 shortage declarations. Even more cuts. Even more pain. And still the lake dropped. Still the intake tunnels crept closer to that critical elevation. The emergency measures were supposed to be temporary patches. Instead, they have become permanent features of the system. Water rationing that is so normal now that nobody even calls it an emergency anymore. The Bureau of Reclamation, the federal agency in charge of managing the Colorado River system, has considered increasingly desperate measures to try to extend the system's life. Some proposals involve draining both Lake Mead and Lake Powell simultaneously. letting the Colorado River run wild again through the Grand Canyon, and somehow, through engineering or prayer or optimism or magic, making sure the lower basin still gets the water it's legally entitled to. That's like saying, let's remove the air from the life raft, but somehow everyone will still survive. Other proposals involve physically moving Glen Canyon Dam's intake tunnels to lower elevations, so power could theoretically keep generating even if the lake drops further below deadpool elevation. But tunnels don't get cheaper to move the lower you go. Engineering costs double and triple, and water doesn't suddenly become more abundant because you rearrange concrete and reroute pipes. These are the engineering equivalent of rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic while the ship's sinking. They're doing something instead of nothing. They're making it look like they're solving this. But they're not solving the core problem. The core problem is fundamental and absolute. The core problem is that the river doesn't have enough water. There's no engineering fix for that. The 23-year megadrought isn't ending. If anything, climate data suggests it's getting worse. Peer-reviewed scientific studies published by teams at universities across the West show that Colorado River flows could drop another 10 to 35% by 2050. Let that number sit with you. 10 to 35% lower than it already is now. That's not speculation. That's not worst-case thinking. That's the mainstream scientific consensus based on actual climate models built by the National Center for Atmospheric Research and published in journals like Water Resources Research and Climatic Change. The Southwest is getting hotter. Temperatures are rising at almost twice the global average rate. Higher temperatures mean more evaporation from the reservoirs. More evaporation means less water. It's physics. It's thermodynamics. It's chemical reality. You can't argue with it. You can't negotiate with it. The river cannot keep up with the demands being placed on it. Nothing we've built can fix that gap. Here's a moment most people don't want to think about. If deadpool happens, if Lake Powell drops below elevation 3,370 feet, the dam might never recover in any human lifetime. Even if the megadrought ended tomorrow and supernatural storms started refilling the reservoirs at record rates, it would take years. Multiple years of above-average flows. And those years would be years without power generation. Years without controlled water releases. Years where the Colorado River system would operate in crisis mode constantly. 40 million people would be living in a system that's no longer managed, no longer stable, no longer the predictable American West, as we've known it for the last 100 years. The entire infrastructure that depends on controlled water flow, hydroelectric plants, irrigation systems, municipal water supplies, industrial facilities, would be operating in emergency mode for years, maybe decades. The conversation about what comes next is starting to happen, and it's terrifying because there is no good option. Some scientists and conservation groups are now arguing for something that seemed impossible just 5 years ago. Drain Lake Powell entirely. Remove Glen Canyon Dam. Let the Colorado River run wild again through the Grand Canyon. Restore the river and the canyons to something closer to what they were before 1963. It sounds radical. It sounds irresponsible. It sounds like surrendering. But as Lake Powell drains anyway, just slower, uncontrolled, unmanaged, maybe draining it intentionally is just accepting reality rather than denying it. Maybe a managed release is better than a catastrophic failure. Some environmental groups call this the Restore Glen Canyon movement. Other people call it giving up. The truth is probably somewhere in between. By the way, if you're looking for our monthly hoodie giveaway, this month's winner could be wearing our new exclusive Glen Canyon series. Check the description for how to enter. Proceeds go to water conservation efforts in the Colorado River Basin. Lake Powell didn't become a problem overnight. The dam didn't fail in a day. The Colorado River Compact didn't suddenly become too generous. All of this was baked into the system from 1922 onward. We just ignored it. We built cities in the desert. We built Las Vegas on the promise of Lake Mead's water. We built Phoenix and Scottsdale and Tucson on the promise of the Colorado River. We built the agricultural empire of California's Central Valley on irrigation. We built Palm Springs resorts and golf courses. We built suburbs sprawling across the Arizona desert, and we told ourselves the water would never run out. We promised more than the river could deliver, and we built the entire modern American Southwest on that impossible promise. For 100 years, that worked because we were running down a battery called reservoir storage. We were using up the buffer that nature and engineering had built. Now the battery is nearly empty. The system that fed the explosive growth of the Southwest is becoming the system that will force the contraction. What comes next is not growth. What comes next is managing scarcity. And nobody knows how to do that yet. Nobody wants to talk about what managed scarcity looks like. Nobody wants to imagine what that future actually feels like. The hard part isn't understanding the problem anymore. Every scientist understands it. Every engineer understands it. Every water manager from Phoenix to San Diego understands it. The hard part is that 40 million people's lives, millions of acres of farmland, and the entire economic structure of the American Southwest are built on a foundation that's cracking in real time. Water will get rationed. Cities will shrink. Farms will go dry. Entire agricultural regions might disappear. The question isn't whether it's going to happen. The question is just how long the emergency measures can buy us before the real reckoning arrives. Before deadpool becomes more than a term in a document. Before it becomes your reality. And the worst part is, we are not even preparing for it. We are still arguing about who bears the pain, instead of accepting that the pain is coming, no matter what we choose. Glen Canyon. Dam is not dying because of bad engineering. Engineers built it exactly as specified. It is dying because we asked a river to do something a river can't do. We asked it to flow with the abundance of a wet century, forever, in a climate that's getting progressively drier. We built a 710-foot wall of concrete to hold back the impossibility. And we are discovering now that walls can't hold back thermodynamics. Physics doesn't negotiate. The river runs where the water goes, and the water isn't going the way we promised it would. The Colorado River is 140 years into a promise it can't keep, and there's nobody coming to save us. No federal bailout, no last-minute deal, no engineering miracle. Just the slow, inevitable reality that we have finally run out of buffer. We have finally hit the actual limit of what this river can actually provide. What makes this particularly brutal is that it is not even surprising anymore. We have known about the structural deficit for decades. We have known about the Megadrought for 23 years. We have been cutting water allocations since 2021. And we are still acting shocked, still acting like this is some unexpected crisis. Still acting like there's some magic solution hiding somewhere. But it is not unexpected. It is the inevitable conclusion of a century-long mathematical problem finally reaching its solution. The numbers don't lie. The river can't deliver what we promised it would deliver. Never could have. And if this story is a reminder that even the most engineered systems can fail, even the most carefully planned infrastructure can break when the underlying assumptions turn out to be wrong. Download our free 72 Hours Disaster Guide to help you prepare. The link is in the description. This is not a story with a solution written yet. It is a story that's still unfolding in real time, right now. The 2026 deadline for the Colorado River Compact's operating agreements is approaching fast. The 7 states still haven't agreed on what water cuts they'll accept. The federal government is waiting to see if this system can somehow stabilize itself. Arizona and California are quietly preparing contingency plans for what comes next. Nevada is building desalination facilities on the Colorado River. Colorado is considering aggressive conservation measures and alternative water sources. And Lake Powell keeps dropping. The bathtub rings keep accumulating. The intake tunnels keep creeping closer to the threshold below which deadpool takes over. We're inches away from a transformation that nobody's prepared for, and no amount of emergency management is going to delay it much longer. The American West is about to find out what happens when the river finally, completely, runs dry. And we're all going to live through it. Welcome to the future of water in America.